The latest Pompey news, updates every day from the Pompey Sound news desk.
John Messina was asked what Pompey are doing to limit the number of injuries, which are already beginning to dog Pompey for a second season in succession.
We're always looking at injuries, we're always looking at every possible angle to improve the injury record. We've always got scope to invest in the medical team and the recovery protocols we have at the training ground. With the facilities we have, we've invested in both pitches and the goalkeeping area over the summer. They're looking in really good nick at the moment. All of the things we try to do to make us a good football club, there's always the willingness to do that. I think we've made huge strides since I came to the club almost 3 years ago, and we were over in the cabins. We've moved into this building, and it's a completely different setup. We're working hard to improve the outside of the training ground. We have the facilities in the main building, and we're working hard to improve the pitches. There's little things we do which get backed, little things like asking for new goals which come in at 18 to 20k. There's no issue, ever, but those are the small things which accumulate. There's new ice baths which have also gone in. We're always trying to improve things, and the response is always positive.
Yeah, if any club is going to get there first in understanding why there is this huge increase, a spike in the number of injuries over the last few seasons, perhaps last 10 years, but it wasn't being tracked 10 years ago. It's being tracked now. Almost every club, particularly in the Championship, have got a really long injury list. And top of that list is hamstrings. And then you've got cruciate ligament injuries as well. And of course, the whole variety of other things, groin injuries, ankles being turned over, knees being knocked and that sort of thing. But hamstrings are dogging absolutely every club. We've got, a little army of people who are nursing hamstring injuries and strains, groin strains and so on and so forth, and so have most other clubs. We won't be seeing Rob Atkinson on Saturday because he's gone and stretched or torn or whatever a hamstring. Somebody will eventually spot the reason, because there has to be a common reason, and it's one that you would hope that there is an answer for or a solution to. In the meantime, John Messina is saying quite rightly that the club are providing every top-level facility to the players Monday to Friday when they are training, when they need to be protected against, sudden, mysterious injury onset that the club can possibly do. They're spending the money, is what he's saying. Well, they're spending the money on that. And hopefully they will be spending some money if they decide that's what they want to do. That's the recruitment team in January, because Michael Eisner, I don't know if you saw it elsewhere today, has said that he is quite happy to write a couple of cheques come January. Exciting. John Messina has been very quick to step in the way of any flack heading the way of set-piece coach Michael Doyle, explaining that he is responsible for absolutely everything that happens on the training ground and on the pitch.
I don't just launch Michael out there and say, go and do that. I don't just put everything on him. I sign off on absolutely everything we do with set plays. We watch the lads when we are doing set plays, which we did on Monday and did again on Tuesday. I'm fully part of that, and it's not something where I can say, it's nothing to do with me. It's everything to do with me. That's my responsibility. We can spend the next 48 hours working relentlessly on set pieces. If we then decide we're not going to do it at the weekend, it doesn't make an ounce of difference. I didn't play long enough at championship level to have an opinion on it, but whenever I played I had to pick up a centre-half who was usually 5 inches taller than me. It was about aggression, mentality, and making sure that man didn't make the first contact. I wasn't perfect at it, but there's plenty of players who have that aggression and show that mentality. At the minute we're not doing it, and I don't think size matters. Japhet Tanganga isn't the biggest in the world, but that aggression and willingness to go and put your head where it hurts is lacking for us.
John Messina, as usual, showing first-class management skills there by stepping in to defend his set-piece coach and saying that the buck stops with him, basically, which it has come to be the case that although he was originally billed as a head coach, he is in fact the manager of Portsmouth, except in business affairs and what have you, the architecture of the place. That goes very much to Andy Cullen. But John Messina is in charge of everything, every aspect of what goes on the pitch, probably in charge of the women as well, and also, of course, the academy, ultimately. So he is ultimately the person who takes responsibility for defending against set pieces and scoring with set pieces. And it's something he's got personal experience experience of. But he points out that he didn't play long enough in the Championship to be completely immersed in what it takes to defend a set piece in the Championship compared to what it takes to defend a set piece in League One. So it would be kind of interesting to nail him down and ask him just what he perceives those differences as being now that he's got a good deal of experience of managing a team at Championship level. And by the way, I just want to say one thing in reflection on what he has to say about this. He says that there were occasions when he was playing centre-half and he found himself playing against centre-forwards, trying to mark them, trying to stop them getting their head first to the ball, who were 5 inches taller than him. Well, John is, I believe, 6'2" in his socks. So unless he was up against Peter Crouch, he's over-egging the pudding slightly. But he's allowed to, because we depend on him so much. Local football agency Bristol Live have been taking the temperature of Bristol City as they prepare for their visit to Pompey in the wake of a disappointing, for them anyway, midweek defeat.
Bristol City's slow start against Wrexham was more the result of a mental topic than a physical one, according to Gerhard Struber, with the Robins boss feeling his side's decision-making standards slip during their defeat in North Wales. The Reds missed the chance to secure back-to-back league wins and fell out of the Championship playoff places as they were beaten 2-0 by the Red Dragons on Wednesday evening. A first-half Nathan Broadhead strike, as well as a Radek Vitek own goal 16 minutes from full-time, proved to be enough to keep all 3 points at the Stock racecourse. Struber said, "When 1 or 2 players, in pressing moments, are a little bit too late, especially with moments how we close back after long balls, I would say we know exactly what comes today. They play many long balls very direct, and have with Kiefer Moore I would say a different player in the league, with how he can come in dangerous moments. We control Kiefer Moore on a really good level, but we were one time, very sloppy, and they score very cheaply."
So just ahead of a little bit about Gerhard Struber, head coach of Saturday's opponents, Bristol City. But just ahead of that, team news, we won't be seeing Rob Atkinson in action because he's pulled a hamstring, and so he's out of Saturday's game and is very disappointed not to be able to say hello to his friends at Fratton and, of course, the Fratton crowd, who no doubt will start giving him a hard time, or would have been giving him a hard time if he'd been there when the game kicked off. So Gerhard Struber, a slightly mysterious appointment as Bristol City's manager. He's Austrian, he's 48 years old. He had, to be fair, a pretty ordinary career as a player, playing 50 times for SV Austria Salzburg, who were a good enough team. He's a midfield player, 5'8". He now has his hair officially shaven off, so he's a baldy. And he looks as though he thinks he's pretty photogenic, and I suppose, in technical terms, he is. I'm fighting shy of saying he's a bit of a poser. I'm not going to say that about him, although 1 or 2 of the publicity photographs that have been taken of him have been very well lit, if you know what I mean. In other words, they're professionally done, and he's quite hoping for a catwalk contract. His playing career was so-so, and when he gave the game up, he became an IT specialist in software, and then he spent 8 years in sales and management with an insurance company. But he wanted to get back into football, so he did a coaching course, and he managed to get in as a coach with Wolfsberger AC in his home country. And then, a very mysterious appointment, frankly, he became Barnsley manager from absolutely nowhere, with really, a CV you could write on the back of a matchbox. But he was suddenly managing Barnsley, and he managed to keep Barnsley up in the Championship, but only because he was lucky enough to be up against a team with whom they were vying for relegation, who happened to be a team, Wigan Athletic, who were getting a 12 points deduction. And so he managed to sort of keep Barnsley up. But it didn't keep him in the job for very long. It was almost as though it was seen that he didn't have what it takes to be a Championship manager. So he left and he went to America and became involved in coaching the New York Red Bulls. And from there, with his connections with Red Bull, who, remember, are a growing force in world sport generally, not just Formula One, he joined from the New York Red Bulls. He went to Red Bull Salzburg, However, he was fired after less than a year, and he went. They lost to Sturm Graz, which for Red Bull Salzburg was too much, and so he left. Well, was fired, and he was picked up by FC Köln. But less than a year later, he was sacked. So he's sacked from two pretty obscure jobs, in each of them less than a year, having kept Barnsley in the Championship by virtue of a points deduction for Wigan. So this is not really a particularly spectacular CV, and yet he was appointed head coach at Bristol City by somebody who you would think knows what they're doing. Their chief shareholder sounds like a very nice guy, Steve Lansdown. He owns Premiership rugby team, the Bristol Bears. He doesn't own. He's majority shareholder, which is a kind of ownership, but not an outright ownership. He is a majority shareholder of the Bristol basketball side, Bristol Flyers, and as majority shareholder of Bristol City, which he has been for some time now, putting a lot of money into each of these three clubs and sports. He decided that Herr Struber is the man for the job. We'll be able to get some measure of how he's laid his team out on Saturday. We have to hope that I have to say this, we don't wish anybody ill on Pompey Sound, but we don't wish the very best to our up-and-coming opponents. So I have to say that we hope that he's beginning to show signs of creaking under the pressure when his team run out and start doing what they do against us on Saturday lunchtime. Remember, it's 12:30.